The meeting of the Backbench Business Committee, when we'll be considering applications from colleagues for debates in both Westminster Hall and the Chamber. Westminster Hall for Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the Chamber in general on Thursdays, but occasionally for other times. First up is Polly Billington, supported by colleagues, for a debate on energy bill support. And this is a request for a debate in the Chamber for 3 hours. Polly, please present.
Thank you very much, Ms Blackman. And the reason we would like to be able to debate this is that I've already raised this as a 10-minute rule bill about an energy social tariff. There are a range of different options for being able to support not only the vulnerable but also other people in managing their energy bills. And we need to explore those properly and fully in order to be able to inform further conversations with the government, with the recommendations that might come out from other parts of the industry and indeed from civil society. We have a lot of pressure and conversations that we have with the wider sector, both the industry and the fuel poverty campaigners, about what we need to do to be able to address this. We know the government has a range of measures which they're putting in place in order to be able to reduce bills, but we think a debate about the specific kind of support to energy bills will give us an opportunity to surface some of the problems with some of the proposals and also what the eventual consensus on a solution might be.
Thank you. Anything your colleagues want to add?
Simply, Chair, to add that the cost of living and energy bills is the biggest issue facing all voters. I serve a constituency that has the highest levels of fuel poverty in the UK, 40% of homes in fuel poverty, and this is a huge issue for my constituents and constituents across the UK.
Similar to my other two colleagues, this is one of the biggest issues we get in the mailbag. It's an issue that's been ongoing for years. It's a very difficult one to tackle. More time for colleagues to discuss that in detail to find the correct solutions that will have a short-term and long-term impact, I think would be very welcome.
Okay. Will.
I've just got two questions. So obviously you've got a decent amount of speakers, but in order for us to bring this forward, half of them have to be from the official opposition. So is there any chance of you getting some Conservatives to be concerned about this issue?
I do think there will be some opportunities for. We have a number of opposition MPs who have thought deeply about energy market reform over a period of time. And I think whether they will be for or against particular proposals of energy bill support, they will at least be able to draw on their experience of having made decisions in government, particularly during the energy crisis around Ukraine and before that, and debating what actually works and what doesn't create perverse incentives and so forth would be a good example of robust debate between people of differing political philosophies trying to find a good solution for the country.
Good. And the second one, so we've got 17 debates in the queue for the Chamber at the minute. We'd probably be looking at around after May. Would you consider taking Westminster Hall, or are you set on the Chamber? I understand it's a very important issue, but there is a wait.
I think in terms of timings, it will be better for us to be able to do it earlier, but I'm comfortable about leaving it later so that we can really enable as many people as possible to take part in the debate.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions from colleagues? No? Right, well, thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch with you in due course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Clive Jones, who literally arrived at the right on time. Our next request is for a debate on the National Lung Cancer Screening Programme. A request for a debate in Westminster Hall on a Tuesday. This was deferred from last week because you weren't able to be here. Clive, do you want to present your request?
Yes. Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee, for letting me speak to you about my application this afternoon. Firstly, from my own experience, I know how important early diagnosis is to effectively treating cancer. It took 2 visits to the GP before I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that delay meant that the cancer spread to my lymph glands. Whilst I was unfortunate to have that, whilst I was fortunate to have effective treatment, people who are diagnosed often at later stages or with a much more lethal cancer are not so lucky. And lung cancer is the UK's biggest killer, accounting for 20% of all cancer deaths. In just 2 years between 2017 and 19, there were almost 50,000 lung cancer cases in the UK and nearly 35,000 deaths. So it's a shocking statistic. And in comparison to our European neighbours, the picture for the UK is equally bleak. The 5-year relative UK lung cancer survival rate is way below the European average. It should be clear that something needs to change in order to improve outcomes for lung cancer patients. And key to this is improving early diagnosis through a national screening programme. The UK Lung Cancer Charity and other key groups achieved their ambition of doubling 5-year lung cancer survival rates from 8 to 16% in their first 10 years. It's now targeting a new survival ambition of 35%. And they are clear that a national screening programme is a realistic and fundamental step towards getting this ambition. Lung cancer is one of the deadliest cancers in the UK. It also has the biggest deprivation gap of all cancers by far. A national screening programme would help address these inequalities in care. Sadly, nearly 13,500 deaths each year are linked to socio-economic disadvantage. The most deprived areas have a lung cancer mortality rate 3 times that of the least deprived areas. And people living in rural and coastal areas in the UK have poor access to NHS services, which increase their risk of early death from lung cancer. A national screening programme would help address these gaps in healthcare, providing many with a potential diagnosis when they might never have got one before. A debate on the national screening programme for lung cancer could not come at a more opportune time when we have the National Cancer Plan, or the 10-year National Cancer Plan, as it's now being called, coming out tomorrow. This debate will allow parliamentarians to highlight the need for a national screening programme at a time when it is important long-term decisions are being made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Clive. You will know, of course, that you were due to have a debate in Westminster Hall on Thursday.
Yes.
On secondary breast cancer,
Yep.
which you've withdrawn the application, which means there'll be no second debate in Westminster Hall on this Thursday.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Well, so are we, because we've got a long queue of people that want to hold debates, and you had accepted it. So what was the background to that? Because the committee will want to know, if we allocate a debate, that you're not going to pull out at the last minute, which doesn't allow us then to get an alternative debate in the relevant chamber.
That's a very good point, and as I say, I apologise for that happening. But in a conversation with the Minister yesterday, it was fairly clear that she was not going to be coming to the debate on Thursday to respond for the government, because there will be a statement on Thursday about the National Cancer Plan.
Okay. Well, I know you're a relatively new member. Let us be clear. It is up to the government to provide a minister or spokesman on their behalf to answer the debates that we allocate. It is not up to you or others to determine which minister arrives. We've deliberately tried to make sure that, for example, the Health Department don't have several debates going on at the same time, so there should be no justification for a minister not being able to answer. I will be taking this up because the reality is that if this sort of thing happens, it disrupts what backbenchers want to debate. And our role is to safeguard backbenchers being able to have the debates that they want to have, not at the convenience of the government. And I believe I'll be supported by the Leader of the House in that regard as well.
Okay.
Anyway,
Right.
we'll deal with that separately.
I take your point on board personally.
Okay, thank you. Because, by the way, there are other ministers that could have answered, and whips can answer as well in Westminster Hall, so they've got no excuse in that respect. Anyway, let's move on. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chairman. You do need for backbenchers from the government party to have a 90-minute debate in Westminster Hall. You've only got 3.
We've got 4 now. We've got another one today. Paulette Hamilton.
Paulette Hamilton, right, okay. Well, we're just going off the information that we've got here, so we'll note that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Martin.
Yeah, Clive, we've got enough Tuesday applications for Westminster Hall to take us through to May already. Would you consider having it on a Thursday in order to bring it forward?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Right,
Especially in light of what's happened this week.
Well, we live and learn. Okay, well, thank you very much, Clive.
Okay.
The clerks will be in touch with you in due course. Thank you
very much.
Next application is from Ros Savage for a request for a debate on community hospitals, and this is for a Westminster Hall debate on a Tuesday morning.
Indeed.
Thank you, Ros.
Thank you very much. So, coming from a rural constituency, community hospitals are a cause very dear to my heart. They're a vital but often overlooked part of our NHS infrastructure, and especially important in rural areas where travel times between the larger hospitals can be quite significant. Those could be crucial minutes and also take ambulances out of commission for that time. But unfortunately, it looks like services at community hospitals are gradually being eroded. I'm thinking particularly of Cirencester Hospital in my constituency, which a couple of years ago had operations literally suspended at their minor injuries unit, supposedly temporarily, but it ended up becoming permanent. There is now a day surgical unit that again is having its functions temporarily suspended, and local residents are very, very concerned that this is a gradual erosion. There doesn't really seem to be a clear national strategy or parliamentary scrutiny over services at community hospitals. And this debate seems particularly timely at the moment, given that the Secretary of State has been talking about delivering care closer to home through the NHS 10-year plan. So it sometimes feels like the stated ambition is one thing, but the reality on the ground is heading in the opposite direction. There are about 500 community hospitals across the UK, so there will be one in many constituencies, and they really do form a crucial bridge between primary care, social care, and the major acute hospitals. So even though I understand the desire to create centres of excellence, they're a very important role for these community hospitals, especially in terms of sorry, can't find that bit just at the moment. So we know that most patients prefer to be treated closer to home so that relatives are able to visit them, and due to that boost in morale, they often do produce better patient outcomes as well as a more personal service. It really does tie in with that NHS 10-year programme that focuses on preventative care, integrated service and treatment closer to patients' homes. And I know that many colleagues are experiencing similar decline in services. And this issue is only going to become more pressing over the coming few years. We're seeing, of course, a lot of house building going on across the country. So we've got significant new developments increasing the population of our market towns. So there will be increased demand for A&D services. We also have declining rural public transport, making it very difficult for people, especially elderly people and sick people, who are, of course, the ones who primarily need the services from hospitals, to actually get to appointments. And it makes it so much easier for them if they've got a shorter journey. And, of course, we have a growing population of older people living in poor health. with diabetes on the rise. So there is that increasing demand for step-down and rehabilitation care. So why is parliamentary time needed? It seems that once those services are lost, particularly once a hospital closes down entirely, they are very rarely restored. There currently seems to be no nationally agreed definition, data framework or strategic direction for community hospitals in England. So I'm hoping that a debate would allow MPs to represent these very widespread constituent concerns, to take a look at whether policy ambitions match delivery and to explore the case for a national strategy. And I have to say this cause is particularly top of my mind at the moment, having spent 12 hours on Saturday in an ambulance, not as a patient, I'm happy to say, but riding along and really seeing that a lot of the cases that people feel driven to call 999 don't really need a 999 call. And so community hospitals could help to reduce that demand, help reduce the handover times at hospital entrances, and overall really maintain the quality of service that we wish that we could expect from our NHS.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, colleagues? No? Okay, thank you, Ros. The clerks will be in touch in due course.
Thank you very much.
Next application is from Emily Darlington on the censorship of women's health and wellbeing content online. This is a request for a debate in Westminster Hall for 90 minutes. Emily and colleagues.
Thank you very much, Bob. We want to bring this debate to the House because we feel it's an issue that is very little understood and is having a huge impact on the majority 51% of the population. It is the issue of the fact that there is censorship going on of women's health information and products online because it is being deemed as too sexual and pornographic, even though they're using scientific terms. This is three times more likely to happen to women's health, than it is to men's health, and 95% of those GPs, gynecologists and entrepreneurs that are working in this area have suffered some form of censorship in the past year. This has a significant impact. As I said, it's an issue we feel that there's very little understanding about, and it is something that is really important for us to get right here in the UK, as more and more people are dependent on the internet for their health information, but also health practitioners for keeping up to date with the latest best practice in health-related fields, including women's health. The government is focusing rightly on creating a women's health strategy, but we feel this is a particularly important part that may be lost and missed because it sits between the Department of Health and DCIT in terms of internet censorship of women's health information. And for those reasons, we would very much like to have a debate so we can raise the issues, understand the full impact, and be able to form both our knowledge here in the House, but also the government's understanding and knowledge so that we can have a proper women's health strategy. But my colleagues may want to contribute further.
Phil, you don't have to speak if you don't want to.
I'd be very happy to just add very quickly that I think we've seen in the House that debates on women's health on the one hand and on online safety on the other hand tend to be very well subscribed. Obviously, this subject sits right at the heart of both, so we would anticipate there'd be considerable interest as a result. And just very briefly, also, there's a big issue for UK PLC here because often UK-based femtech is being effectively impacted by this, with products not able to be properly marketed because of what was just described by my colleague.
And just to add, and further to that, is that it is affecting women's health. So if you're searching at the moment on the internet for particular, to understand a particular condition you might have, then the censorship is preventing you from actually understanding that further. So, so this is a very real challenge that women are experiencing.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. You touched about the sort of tension that there is between who has responsibility for the space, DCIT or DHSC. Which would you like the answering department to be?
DHSC, because this is ultimately about women's health.
Any other questions, colleagues? No? Oh, well, the clerks will be in touch with you in due course.
Thank
And
you
just to
very much.
confirm, this is a request for a Tuesday and a Thursday.
Tuesday or
Either
Thursday,
or.
not and.
Well, you never know, you might be carrying on.
A Tuesday or 30 90-minute debate,
Okay,
please.
thank you very much. Thank you.
you.
Right, move on to Paul Foster on a request for the Chamber on a debate on how to achieve the government's ambition to reduce premature deaths from heart disease and stroke by 25% in the next decade. The title's almost as long as the debate.
I took some making up that, Chair. Dr Scott Arthur was going to sit by me, but he apologises. He'd just been called away. I will be brief, Chair. I'm grateful for the opportunity to make this case for a backbench business debate on cardiovascular disease, to be referred to as CVD from now on. It's an issue that affects millions of people across the UK in every one of our constituencies. It's timely, Chair, as it's Heart Month this month. CVD is one of the most pressing health challenges our constituents face and is responsible for over 170,000 deaths each year in the United Kingdom. That's more than a quarter of all deaths, with one life lost every 3 minutes. Most troubling is that for the first time in over half a century, premature deaths from CVD is now rising again. CVD is largely preventable. Around 70% of cases in the UK are linked to risk factors including obesity and smoking, and there are millions of people with risk factors for CVD, such as high blood pressure or high cholesterol, often without knowing about it. Further, in 2024, the most deprived areas of England had rates of early death from CVD 2 times higher than that in the least deprived, a pattern reflected across the UK in the other nations. If we are serious about tackling the stark health inequalities across our country, we must start by tackling CVD. The government has set a bold ambition to reduce premature deaths from heart disease and stroke by 25% over the next decade. And work is underway on a modern service framework for CVD in England as we speak. As priorities for this framework are still being shaped, this debate would provide a critical opportunity for members to share their views and those of their constituents. This debate would also allow members to consider the wider CVD pathway and the policy changes needed beyond the framework, from primary prevention legislation such as the Tobacco and Vapes Bill to opportunities in the Life Sciences Plan to advance life-saving research breakthroughs. Chair, a debate in the House would shine much-needed light on an issue close to all our hearts. Pardon the pun. It would help the government in its commitments and help drive progress in cardiovascular health once more. Finally, this is also deeply personal to me because this is an issue that has also affected me and my family in the past year. I've just been diagnosed with a congenital heart defect that I've not known about for 54 years, which will require significant intervention at some point. Thank you.
Well, we obviously wish you well on that treatment. Sorry, Martin.
Yes. Paul, the committee usually requires 15 speakers for a chamber debate, and you've got 12 listed. That certainly qualifies for a Westminster Hall debate, which we could probably accommodate sooner than the chamber. Would you be happy with that?
Martin, of course I would, Martin, but can I just explain why there's only 12? It is down to the fact I had an enforced absence up until Monday of 2 weeks. And you'll notice within the bid I put in there was a 50 MPs co-signed a letter last year to the Secretary of State of Health and Social Care about this very issue. And I'm convinced that and I've already spoken to them, but because I couldn't be here to get the signatures, that's why there is only the number that you see.
Okay, well, I mean, it would be very helpful if you supply those extra names to the clerks. So the application is in before us, but we won't approve it until those extra names are added.
Okay, understood.
Unless you want a Westminster Hall debate instead.
I would, if I could have a 90-minute Westminster Hall debate, Chair, because it is an issue I think that many members are keen to debate and influence the government legislation where it is currently on this item. And I'd a Tuesday or a Thursday, Chair. It's just something that I'd be really keen to, particularly if anything could be accommodated in February, Heart Month. I know that's asking something, though.
See what
you do the Thursday.
Any other questions, colleagues? No? Well, thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Chair.
The clerks will be in touch in due course.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to Mike Martin, where an application for a debate on UK rearmament and war-fighting readiness. And this is a request for a debate in the main chamber.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to send apologies from Tim Rocker, who is stuck in a bill committee, otherwise he would be here, and Sir Bernard Jenkins, who was sitting here but then had to go to another engagement. So, yeah. So it's actually very simple. There's a huge gap between the risks that we face globally, and you only need to open a newspaper or a magazine or switch on the radio or watch the television to see what those risks are, and the UK's military capability. In fact, currently our military capability is going backwards, and although we have released the SDR last year in July, it's a jam tomorrow document, so much of that stuff is not going to come online until we're well into the 2030s, yet the risk is right now, and actually that gap between what we say and what we do, and also the risks that we face and the capability that we have, is getting wider, not narrower. I liken this akin to the 1930s debates on rearmament, and that is where we are. It is our firm conviction. I'm just speaking on behalf of Sir Bernard. He asked me to highlight a recent report that he had written, which was specifically about transitioning the UK to warfighting readiness. And it is, if you like, a subplot of this wider theme for rearmament, which is not only about developing the mass and the capability, but also making sure that the troops are trained, ready, integrated, working with allies, and all of those extra bits that we need to do once you have rearmed. And so I respectfully submit the application to the committee.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll obviously look at this sympathetically, and indeed, in conversations with the Leader of the House, he was bemoaning the fact that we're not getting to enough applications on behalf of defence. So that ticks a few boxes for people. Any other questions from colleagues? No? The clerks will be in touch with you in due course.
I have a brief question.
Okay.
I've put the Ministry of Defence as the responding department, but actually, is it possible in these applications to ask for the Prime Minister to respond to these debates?
Well, you could ask, but the Prime Minister, I suspect the Prime Minister is likely to say, well, I'll make sure the relevant Minister does ask.
Well, I would like to ask in that case.
Well, as I say, you could ask, but it is generally speaking, we don't even get Secretaries of State normally responding to our debates. It's normally junior ministers. So, but I understand the rationale.
But the importance of that.
Yeah, the importance. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next application is from Dawn Butler. This is a request for a debate in the Chamber on International Women's Day 2026. Not 2002. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Dawn.
Good afternoon. International Women's Day has been in existence for over 100 years. I've been putting in for debates in this House, not for 100 years, but since I've been here.
Seems like it.
I also ensured that we flew the flag from Parliament, the International Women's Day flag. This year is Give to Gain, which is about investing in women. And the more that you invest in women, the more everybody thrives. And I'd like to ensure that we have an International Women's Day in the Chamber for 2026.
Thank you. Mary.
Thank you, Dawn. Have you considered bringing forward for this year's debate a motion with a list of asks for government?
Can definitely put that in. I mean, I would also hope that the government puts this into the parliamentary diary so it happens in government time, but if that doesn't happen, then obviously a backbench debate. But yes, I would absolutely consider that.
Thank you.
It'd be a long list.
Yeah, because, and given when International Women's Day is, obviously it's the 8th of March, do you want this as close to International Women's Day as is possible?
Yes, please.
Right, okay, fine, thank you. Right, well, you could help us by leaning on the Leader of the House to make sure we're allocated the relevant Thursday.
I will do that.
The clerks will be in touch with you in due course.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And our next application is from Jane Kirkham on an application in Westminster Hall for a 90-minute debate on ports and ports connectivity.
Thank you, Mr. Backman. I'm a member of the Ports APPG, and I'm here after a discussion with them and on behalf of a number of MPs from around the country, because of course this is a very cross-party issue. Many of us have ports, either thriving ports, not so thriving ports, or dormant ports in our constituencies. Now, ports are going to be an absolutely vital piece of infrastructure in the government's plans for clean energy, defence, marine work, all sorts of things. So. And there was also a manifesto commitment to put 1.8 billion into ports, and the National Wealth Fund were going to be instrumental in that. Now, I have a port in my constituency that has a big plan for infrastructure expansion. We also want to restore the freight railway to that port. And what I realised when talking to other MPs about this is that the connectivity of ports is something that's really fallen away and will be absolutely crucial if we're going to restore those ports to use and try and serve some of the ambitions that the country has with the economy and building up the skills and the economy of those coastal areas that have been suffering so much over the last decade or so. So it seemed to be a really important topic to get on the government's agenda. It seems to have dropped down slightly. That 1.8 billion needs deploying. So I wanted to raise it to the top of the agenda again.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any time sensitivity on the request? Anything that's happening that the government's up to in terms of ports?
Only in that, obviously, the rounds for floating offshore wind, the CFDs and the Crown Estate leasing rounds are happening. One has just happened, another one will be happening later this year. So really that infrastructure, the quicker we can get it up and running, the better. But it's not specifically time limited in that way. It's just becoming more urgent as time goes on.
Just to note that I've signed the application, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The clerks will be in touch with you in due course. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, Yun Yang, a request for a debate in the Chamber on customer service standards at First Port, together with colleagues.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. First Port is the largest property managing agent in the UK, as I'm sure you know. And so this debate follows a series of informal sessions that various different party groupings have had with First Port over the last year. Labour MPs, Lib Dem MPs and Conservative MPs have separately had scrutiny sessions with their own residents concerning First Port's fairly appalling track record of customer service, and I think we would all benefit from coming together as a whole house to discuss this in the open rather than just in our own party groupings. This application also, of course, follows Rebecca Paul MP's general debate on service charges last October, and in the conclusion to that debate, you may recall Matt Pennycook, the Housing Minister, saying that specifically he found the mentions of First Port really very high in number, and that they were the one property agent that really stood out during the course of the debate as being the magnet for so many complaints. And that's certainly been our experience as constituency MPs. It's certainly a cross-party issue. We have 79 MPs from various different parties who've signed onto this application, and I think that shows how much this affects constituencies across the UK. 1 in 5 homes in the UK are subject to service charges, and because First Port is the largest collector of those and also has been through an amount of organisational change in the last couple of years, I think it's particularly timely to look at First Port in a concentrated way. In terms of what's happening in the next few months in terms of the urgency of this debate, we've heard from the Secretary of State for Housing that the implementation of new measures following from the 2024 Leasehold and Freehold Act that may apply to service management agents like First Port will be rolled out in coming weeks, which I'm sure, as you know, is a kind of politician speak for slightly undefined amount of time, but certainly something that's quite imminent. And of course, we will expect the Leasehold and Commonhold bill coming to the Commons in the coming year. I think it's particularly relevant that, of course, in April, at the start of the next financial year, residents will be given their new service charges calculated by First Port. While there have been a number of outstanding queries from different kinds of estates, from freehold new build estates to leasehold blocks of flats, all different kinds of estates, as to what really goes into those service charges. And so really that level of transparency, meeting existing legal obligations on First Port, is really our question here. So I'll just say that as the introduction, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, fine. And your colleagues?
Thank you, Chair. And every single member of this House will have had innumerable conversations at surgeries, in the street while canvassing, detailing so many heart-wrenching stories from their constituents who've suffered at the hands of First Port. That's why this has such broad cross-party support. Just in my constituency of North Somerset alone, we have 750 properties managed by First Port. And they've demonstrated a consistent lack of transparency, poor customer service, and fundamentally a level of service that no leaseholder should be paying for. And it's clear that the constituents across the country are at a loss of how to extract clear communication from First Port. And I think that underlines the reasons why we need to kind of have this debate.
I will just add, it's a bread and butter issue for many constituents across the constituency. I think given the cost of living, people are struggling financially. The one thing that keeps coming up is the unaffordability of service charges continuously soaring. And my constituency of Sheffield Central has thousands of leaseholders, and First Port being the biggest provider and causing the biggest issue. So I think it's essential that we have the opportunity to put forward our constituents' complaints and for them to be heard in the chamber.
I just wanted to add, as my colleagues have said, it's a huge issue in my constituency and across the country. I think, as one Prime Minister once said, transparency is the best disinfectant. First Port are not transparent about their management practices, their service charges. So I think we should be using debates like this to apply that kind of transparency to their poor management practices across the country.
Well,
so debates should directly relate to areas of government responsibility, and whilst I completely understand your frustration with First Port, I get it too. The government is not directly responsible for customer service standards within private companies. Would you consider changing the title to Regulations of Property Management? When you're in the debate, you can slate First Point as much as you want, but just for the committee to be able to approve it, would you consider that?
Yeah, I'm very happy to broaden it to the regulation of the sector or of the company. I think coming off the back of the previous debate on service charges, I think it'd be beneficial to look at the issue from the business perspective, and so to talk about a specific business and its functioning as opposed to service charges in general. So I was hoping for a more specific debate than we had in the chamber last time. But yes, very happy to open that.
And I think there has been parliamentary precedent talking about specific companies' failings in the chamber.
What is debate titles, though?
Well, I mean, if you look at urgent questions that have been granted and some of the
previous debate from the Backbench Business Committee, and as part of our committee, we have the remit of that. So, like I say, in the debate, say what you want. First point of rubbish, that's fine. But for the title of the debate, I would encourage you to change to a more broad spectrum.
And the other issue is, obviously, there has been a debate, as you say, quite rightly say, on service charges, and indeed First Port were predominant in that debate. They're not alone, I have to say, in terms of their service charges being, shall we say, opaque. And I think there are issues. Have you considered having a divisible motion that calls on the government to take appropriate action, which you might want to consider? You don't have to, it's your application. Yeah. But to me, given the length of time this has gone on, as you quite rightly say, it's a cross-party issue, it's not partisan, and clearly action is required, but we almost need to press the government to do something rather than have a general debate that ends up with the minister replying and possibly everyone going away not very happy.
Yeah. So is this a substantive debate that you're proposing rather than a general debate? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
It's up to you. You're the applicants. We don't determine that. But I just think you might want to think about that. Sure. Because you mentioned the Leasehold and Commonwealth Bill. There is criticism of that bill at the moment in that it doesn't go far enough. And others are saying it goes too far. But so I think the government needs to be pressed on these issues. Yeah. Having been involved, I mean, I was on the Housing Communities Local Government Select Committee for 14 years, and we constantly debated these particular problems and wanted action. So you might want to press the current government to actually do something as opposed to airing the problems that there are.
Yes. I'm not familiar with the wording of substantive debates. I don't know if anyone...
Well, it's up to you we don't do it on the hoof. You might want to go away, think about it, and then submit the motion to us, at a future meeting. That doesn't mean you've got to come back, just pass it to the clerks and we'll consider it appropriately.
Great, thank you.
I think it would be appropriate for us to go away and have a
Yeah.
chat to the signatories and check that they would support such a thing as well.
Yeah. So we'll look into the Will Stone's suggestion about the regulation of rather than the service charges of, and also the substantive wording. That's great, thank you.
The clerks will be in touch with you anyway about potential time for a debate.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the public business for this afternoon. The committee will now go into private session to review the applications and determine timings for debates. Order.